Hey everybody, it is late at night and I'm Norman. Welcome to the Halloween special for 2023. Tonight I'm joined by my favorite woodland creature, the Wendigo. So before we begin, what am I wearing on my wrist tonight? Because it's Halloween, I am wearing the cryptic looking Copernic. It's dark and mysterious looking. Tonight we'll begin with a tour of the crazy Halloween decorations that have filled my house. Then we're going to be diving into watches in horror movies. Okay, so we're going to leave the studio and take a tour here. Okay, so I know that there are no watches in this segment, but don't fall asleep or run away because you have to see the last thing that I have to show you and tell you the crazy story behind it. We have the creepy skeleton, vicious plants, cobwebs everywhere, a ghostly cat who eats on the table, of course, and talks a lot. Crow's feathers, and the lighting. We've been slowly replacing all of our lights with color changing lights so that year round we can change them up for holidays and whatnot. This wall is where the Wendigo usually lives, but tonight he's in the studio with us. Look who lurks in the corner. Terrifying. No. Just no. Okay, are you ready? We're gonna go to where it all began. This is actually the original studio for this channel. Yep, the garage. So the other day in the morning, the dog was absolutely losing his mind and he wouldn't stop. So I had to go downstairs to see what was going on, and I saw this on my front porch. Yes. Krampus was hanging out on my porch, making noise, and absolutely terrifying the dog. My good friends and neighbors bought this for me as a birthday present. So crazy. Yeah. This is going to go out in the front yard, not only during Halloween, but on Krampusnacht. So, what is the first movie?
The first movie is The Rear Window.
The Rear Window is a vintage horror movie about a photographer who's stuck in his apartment due to a broken leg. To pass the time, he watches his neighbors out his window. That's a bit creepy. And he witnesses what may be a murder. He believes that his neighbor has killed his wife. And at one point in the movie, we get a wrist shot as he checks his watch, which happens to be a Tissot. And this watch looks pretty great. It's been a long time since I've seen this movie, so I barely remember anything about it, but next time I do watch it, I'm going to be keeping my eyes open for that Tissot, because it's pretty brilliant looking.
The second movie is The Exorcist.
This movie came out in 1973 and scared the pants off of the people of that era. A young girl is possessed by what is, I believe, the only named demon in the Bible, Legion. And that kind of implies a whole host of demons, in fact. However, before seeking the Catholic Church's help, the girl's mother sought a medical explanation. In one scene, the doctor who is examining her reveals the fact that he is wearing a Hoyer. Per the keen eyes over at Worn and Wound, or whomever first identified this, The piece is stated to be a Hoyer Autiva reference 2446 MH caliber 72 chronograph watch. I honestly didn't notice any watches in this movie. Did the priest wear a watch? Usually in movies, at least horror movies, when there are Catholic priests in the movie, they generally have some pretty decent looking vintage watches on. Now I'm gonna have to rewatch this.
The third movie is The Return of the Living Dead 3.
Back in 1992, the Return of the Living Dead franchise released its third installment. This was well before The Walking Dead completely ruined the genre for everybody. I mean, 1,000,000 seasons of zombie stuff and things. What can you possibly cover that they didn't just beat to death? There are comedic entries in the genre that still hold up, Shaun of the Dead, or Zombieland, to name two. But getting back to this movie, scientists are attempting to animate the dead for military purposes. But hey, it's a love story. Your girlfriend dies, use your dad's zombie experiments to bring her back from the dead. In this movie, one of the scientists is wearing a Daytona, so the lab pays them well. Who knew zombie creation was so lucrative? I may have to do some grave robbing.
The fourth movie is Scream.
The first Scream movie came out in 1996. I actually watched this movie in the theater, and it was surprisingly terrifying when I went to the bathroom after the movie, because everyone in there looked like they could be killers straight out of the movie. I love the Scream franchise. Apart from MTV's totally botched TV series, where they didn't even secure the rights to the Scream mask, that's like making a Friday the 13th movie without the hockey mask. Okay, well, Jason didn't start wearing the mask until the third movie, but yeah. But after it became super iconic, imagine a Friday the 13th movie with some other random mask. Anyway, in spite of pulling a Brosnan Bond and poking fun of the movie's own genre, the Scream movies are just brilliant. A fast-moving, adept killing machine of a villain who ends up being part of your circle of friends and similar twists. Creative death scenes, creepy phone call opening sequences. The Scream franchise is just great. In the original movie, my favorite character and a brilliant actor who got his edgy cred in SLC Punk, which is actually newer than Scream. I had no idea. That is so crazy. Matthew Lillard, and he later starred in 13 Ghosts, which I think everyone hated, but I loved. He wears a Casio AMW 320D in the first Scream movie. This is an Annie Digi watch, and it appears that in the movie he's wearing it on a bund strap. I mean, it looks pretty good on him. It's crazy how watches where if you see them on your own, you might not really see much in them, but then when you see them on someone's wrist, they generally look great.
The fifth movie is Cube 2.
Way back in the days of going to video stores, my wife and I were perusing random movies, and I was going through the horror and sci-fi sections. I forget which one it was actually in. And I stumbled upon an interesting movie called Cube. So I rented it, and I was absolutely blown away. What a crazy, properly gory, and mind-blowing movie. I'm pretty sure I've seen all the Cube movies, but I don't really recall Cube 2. But apparently I need to watch it, or rewatch it, because the characters in the movie end up in the fourth dimension. And the character Simon Grady keeps picking up a Seiko watch from the same person over and over and over and over. Which reminds me of one of the most disturbing scenes I've ever seen in a movie. One of them. If you've never seen the movie Triangle, you must. And trust me, you'll know what scene I'm talking about. But this is another Annie Digi watch, kind of a dressy, sporty, everyday wear piece with a rectangular case. You'll notice that, of course, they are all set to the same time right down to the second.
The sixth movie is White Noise 2. The Light.
This movie came out in 2007, and it actually doesn't sound familiar at all. That's weird. I've seen a lot of horror movies, and I'm pretty sure I haven't seen this one. Or the first one. I'll have to watch it. But in this movie, a man is able to see when people are about to die. So of course he tries to save those who are about to expire, but there are consequences, of course. In this movie, the main character, Abe, wears a Longines. It is a dressy, tonneau-shaped watch. It's a Longines Evidenza watch, and you can actually purchase this watch on Joma Shop, which of course is legit. They aren't cheap though. They'll cost you about $1,500.
And the final movie is Buried.
This was an absolutely terrifying movie, and I love Ryan Reynolds. Even if you're not claustrophobic, this movie will give you the feels that you do not want to have. I remember going into this movie thinking, how are they going to make a whole movie out of a dude buried alive in a coffin? Well, they pulled it off. This movie was brilliant. The film was released in 2010, and just the premise itself gives the movie all it needs to be a tense, horrific experience for the audience. He's buried alive, so oxygen is running out. There's another timer, that being his light sources, and yet another running timer on his only means of communicating with the world beyond what may likely become his grave, his cell phone battery. In this movie, Ryan Reynolds is wearing a Hamilton, the H706-15733 Officer Auto. And in the movie it gets absolutely filthy and probably roughed up pretty bad, but this is a brilliant looking watch. So that'll wrap up this year's Halloween special. Be safe, have fun, and watch horror movies. Thanks for watching.